and welcome to the Game Theory Podcast presented by Fanatics Sports. I'm your host, Sam Vecenie, Fanatics Sportsbook. Wow, my God, today is going to be a fun one on the show today. Today, we're going to break down the biggest surprises of the 2025-26 NBA season to this point. But first, let's go on ahead and hit the music.
They do have a timeout. Decide not to use it. Way downtown.
Bang! Bang! What's this gonna be? Wow! Are you kidding me?
Hello and welcome to the Game Theory Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Vecenie. But if you watch the tape, what you will see completely orchestrated this game. Bryce, what's going on, buddy?
What's up, Sam? How are you? I want to personally request that the NBA adjust their schedule moving forward to play less games over the first weekend of March Madness. Please and thank you. I expect that to be changed in 2027.
Post haste. Please change. Post haste. NBA. We need it immediately. I mean, goodness, like I'm so scatterbrained right now due to the basketball content that I literally just said, called out our wrong sponsor. Like Fanatics Sportsbook is our sponsor. We love them dearly. They are the best here. And they've done such an amazing job supporting the show. And I'm just like over here, like mispronouncing things because there's too much basketball happening, Bryce. There are way too many things happening. And that's the reality. The first place we have to start though is with another sponsor. This will be our Warner Brothers Player of the Week-ish segment that we're going to do. It's actually a video that you did last night on the Substack. Shout out to the Substack, gametheorysamv.substack.com. Go over there, subscribe. You will get breakdowns of all NBA draft prospects, many breakdowns of Darren Peterson, AJ DeBanza, Cam Boozer, everybody that you really care about at the top. And then additionally, all of the guards in the middle of the lottery, all of the wings, everybody that you need to know, certainly all of the bigs in this class, gametheorysamv.substack.com. You broke down Jalen Swain, and I thought this would be an interesting point to talk about Jalen Swain. He's a guy that I think would probably get taken in the first round if he ends up deciding to declare for the draft. I think somebody will take him and take the flyer on him for sure. He helped lead Texas to a win over NC State in the first, at large level game of the NCAA tournament. UMBC Howard played a fun one before that, but Texas NC State was certainly the game of the night that I think everyone was looking forward to. What were your takeaways from Jalen Swain last night?
Yeah. So I think I'm with you. I think he's a first round draft prospect in this class. If he stays in, obviously he has the ability to go back if he wants. There were some good things in this game. I think my biggest thing offensively was we saw a little bit more off-ball offense from Jalen Swain, and so that's how I start the breakdown. So without ruining it too much, we saw him attack an offensive rebound. We saw him relocate, and even some of the off-the-dribble attacks in last night's game started in what I would categorize as true off-the-ball play types, where he's on the second side and he's the secondary creator. He's the advantage exploiter after Tremont Mark creates something, or after the big guy Volkatitis creates something with a double team. That's how I personally see Jalen Swain at the next level. And then obviously I got into his defense as well. A lot of time on his on-ball defense because I've already done countless breakdowns about his off-the-ball defense. And I will give this one caveat before you go. And I say this in the breakdown, Sam. I evaluated him if he was a top 5 or 10 prospect, because that's how everybody else around me seems to want to talk about him right now. In the same,
can we talk about that
real quick? So I come off very negative in this video, Sam, because if that's how everybody else wants to talk about him, that he's in the same stratosphere as AJ DeBanza, then that's how I'm going to do my video breakdown. And I'll leave it there.
Bryce, we need to get you some friends that work in the NBA. Because like Dalen Swain's a really good prospect. And I really like Dalen Swain. I think there's a chance I end up with him in the top 20, to be honest with you. Like, it wouldn't blow my mind if I ended up there. I'm not certain of that by any stretch of the imagination that that's where it's going to land. But if you told me that in 2 months, when I like really sit down, break down the tape, that I end up with Dalen Swain in the top 20, it wouldn't stun me if he's like 19 or so. Because I really like wings. I like, the way that his body mechanics work. I really think that he is long and athletic. I think if you made me guess, it's going to be like 6'7" with like a 6'11" wingspan, something like that, size-wise. So like really good measurements for an NBA wing. I think his balance is exceptional. I think that he moves like an NBA, wing should move, essentially. But there are just some real flaws here when people start bringing up the idea of this, 21-year-old, essentially, third-year player playing on the ball in the NBA, in my opinion. And it starts with the turnovers. And he ended up with 5 turnovers last night. And it just feels like to me, and this is against an NC State team that Bryce, does not have a top 100 defense in college basketball. This is not a good defensive team, NC State. The 5 turnovers were the worst part of his game, but they're a microcosm of what has been an issue for him the entire season. He averaged 3 turnovers per game in conference play too. So I can't sit here and say that the 5 turnover game was an outlier for Swain last night. You know what I mean? It's not like this was bad. And some of the turnovers were just not good enough, frankly, to play on the ball in the NBA. Getting crowded in a trap in the corner at the end of the game like he did, that's just kind of not something an NBA ball handler does, frankly. An NBA wing scorer just does. And then the shooting, obviously, he went 2 for 9 last night, including 1 for 3 from 3. But I know he's made 34.5% from 3. I don't feel great about the shot. I just don't. I think that it's going to be really hard for him to get shots up at volume. When I watch him, do you know what the name is that I've thought about most? And this guy's an NBA player. And, frankly, maybe if we go back and look at his draft class, he might have ended up as a lottery value. But do you know who he reminds me of most right now?
I'm interested because I have 2 names that I like.
I would say DeAndre Hunter is what it reminds me of most right now. Hunter was bigger and longer and more broad than Swain. Swain is a better athlete on some level, but purely in terms of the way that their games functionally work on an NBA court. It reminds me a lot of Hunter because he's pretty okay on the ball. I think that he's pretty good at fighting through screens. He is capable of using his length and athleticism to frustrate opponents, but he's terrible off the ball and does not make an impact in any way, shape, or form off of the ball. Right? You would agree with that?
Yeah, I will push back a little bit. I thought his on-ball defense was very mixed bag last night. It started off well, and then there was some pretty bad. Gets his hips open, gives up a downhill drive. Now, to your point, Darion Williams opens his hip with the mid-post isolation, and then Swain uses his length to block it from behind. It goes off Darion Williams, and that's over. It ends up being a positive play. But in general, yes, I agree with what you're saying defensively.
Yeah. No, totally agree. So there's that piece of it. And then the shot, you can say that Dalen Swain has good touch. And I think the indicators of his touch are really positive around the rim. He makes his free throws, everything like that. But I don't think the shot is ever going to work out to the point where he's going to be able to get shots up at volume, much in the same way that DeAndre Hunter has similarly struggled to get up shots at volume. Now, where I think Swain is a lot better than Hunter on some level is the passing. He's a much better decision maker and can make passing reads in a way that Hunter can't, right? That's at least intriguing to me. But I struggle with the idea of this being a real wing that you can put the ball in his hands and play. And again, that's why I think there's a chance that I end up with Dalen Swain right around 20-ish, somewhere in that 18-ish range. Because this is an NBA player and this is a useful NBA player. And I like Dalen Swain overall. I just think that there is a lot to work on still. And I don't know how often these guys end up working out in the way we want them to. What were the two names that you had?
Well, the name that I see recently is Najee Marshall, which is kind of just an interesting archetype.
We brought that up before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That one. And I think what people will say, they'll go and they're like, well, Marshall would go 13th in his draft. The thing is, you can't guarantee that he's Najee Marshall. And I think there's other guys above him that have higher ceiling outcomes. The other name is, and this is more of just kind of, as I watch him play and what he does, it reminds me of what I thought about him. I'm not saying they're one-to-one players, Sam. It reminds me of what I thought about Jalen Tyson. I really liked Jalen Tyson in that class.
Okay.
And part of it was I knew he wasn't going to play point guard like he did his last year at California. But I like the idea of taking that, moving him into a secondary role. And then this was a guy that rebound. But if you look at the statistical profiles, Tyson turned the ball over a ton, but he rebounded. He got to the free throw line. Swain actually gets there a little bit more. Now, Tyson's 3-point shooting profile is much better than Swain's. Tyson, for his 3-year career, was 37% on 250 attempts, and Swain is 29% on 141 attempts.
I thought Jalen was a much better shooting bet.
But it kind of, it's the same idea for me in terms of when I watched Tyson, I thought he could slide into a role as a secondary creator. And then I had seen film in past years where I thought the defense was better. And that's my hope with Swain as well. I remember watching him in Xavier thinking he was a good defender. And so my hope is if you scale it back into a secondary wing role, he has more energy and attention defensively. And now we kind of get this archetype that is valuable in the NBA, but it's not Jason Tatum. It's not, I mean, I almost feel like people are talking about him like he's going to be Cade Cunningham, like a 6'6" primary creator.
You need to get off the internet, Bryce.
Okay, so here's my thing though. That has to be what they're thinking if they're saying top 5 in this class, right? Like, I just don't see how people are getting to that.
More what I see from people on the internet, and I think it's more that they think this class might not be as good as what we think it is.
Oh, okay.
Like I think that, look, that's the only case that I can really understand for having somebody like Swain or Alan Graves or Tyler Tanner or some of these other guys that like the spreadsheets really like, right? In the top 5.
I want to touch on this real quick. I get very confused why Darius Acuff can get so much hate for being small, and then Tyler Tanner can so acceptably be in top 5 of people's boards without it be. It's
the defense, right? Like Tanner is
He's still small. Like, is that defense going to translate to the NBA? It's because he steals the ball more than Acuff.
Yeah, it's like, would you rather have Jose Alvarado or would you rather have I'm trying to think of like a mid-tier case for like an Emmanuel Quickly, right? Yeah. So, that's just like it's a mid-tier starting point guard that I'm trying to bring up. I'm not saying he's comparable with Acuff. I'm just like trying to say a name.
I understand the Acuff stuff, but I'm like, if you're okay with small guards, we've done the Tanner thing. It just, sometimes I feel like there's a double standard with this stuff. DeBonsa gets the same thing. Everybody can improve except AJ DeBonsa, apparently. Like, everybody else, it's right. Like, well, it's okay that they can't do this. They're going to get better at it. But for some reason, AJ DeBonsa is not going to get any better for whatever reason. So, sorry, continue with the... You triggered something in me today. I don't know what happened.
I've gotten you going. I love it. Like, I think that my
heater gave me problems today, so my energy level is high.
Look, I love people having different opinions.
Yes,
I think it's super valuable. I think it's like incredibly smart. Like, I think I saw Ricky O'Donnell a couple days ago say something like, "Yeah, you would have been laughed at for having Jalen Duren ahead of Jabari Smith."
Yeah,
on a board 3 years ago, and it would have been right. Right. So, I'm very open to a lot of different opinions on these things. I struggle with some of the double standards that people get held to, I would say, much in the same way you do. And I also sometimes struggle with the idea that I don't know that people always consider the way that something will work on an NBA court and how that is different from a collegiate court and how much scheme plays into what happens with these metrics from like a volume perspective and in certain cases, right? Because like, look, we just have to be honest, like not every offense is quite as modern as an NBA offense in college. Illinois has an incredibly modern offense, similarly to like what Boston runs, right? Houston's offense is just like drastically different, right? And, you know, Michigan State's offense is drastically different. So we've talked about this ad nauseum. I don't know that we need to dig deep into it again. I think what I would say with Swain, just to close up, is this is a big matchup against AJ DeBanza.
Yeah.
He has a big opportunity coming up with DeBanza to showcase what he's capable of. I'm going to guess that AJ ends up performing quite well in that Texas game, if only because I think that Dalen's defense on the ball is probably not going to be quite good enough to stop him from being able to drive and get where he wants because of all of the things he does opening up his hips. Like you said, he does get around screens pretty well, but then off of the ball, he really is going to have to be locked in when AJ like comes off of a wide pin and gets the ball and like is already downhill, because if you give AJ that extra split second, he's just like dead. You are absolutely dead and you are going to get driven into the lane. So it's tricky. It's a very, very tricky spot for Dalen Swain, but I'm really excited to watch it.
To your point, I'm cool. People can do whatever they want with their boards. Sometimes what I struggle with is I just want to understand. And that's why I did this Swain breakdown the way I did was, okay, if you're going to have him 5 on a board, I think that means to me, that means you have to think he has like real primary creator potential. And I will just say in this NC State game, that did not look to be the case. And this was a 1-game example, but obviously I've watched him all year. And so that was my biggest takeaway from that, while also acknowledging this is a real first-round draft pick and a guy that I told Pistons fans on Tuesday, hey, watch this game over, you know, and if they win again on Thursday, because Dalen Swain could be a player that you guys fall in love with to add to this Pistons roster. So I very much acknowledge him being a first-round pick, and I think I have him 23 or something like that right now, and he could end up higher. I am excited to watch him play against DeBanza, because if he's able to attack AJ off the bounce, or if he's able to lock in and guard, that would be a great data collection to, you know, maybe change some things for me. But that breakdown is there. Go check it out on the Game Theory Substack.
Go over there. And by the way, shout out to our good friends over at March Madness Live and Warner Brothers. The 2026 NCAA March Madness Men's Tournament is back, and it's guaranteed to keep you dancing every night. The biggest event in college sports is finally here, and TNT Sports has you covered from the opening tip to the final buzzer and everything in between. Keep up with all of the heart-pumping, show-stopping craziness of March Madness across TBS, CBS, TNT, True TV, and the March Madness Live app as we march all the way to Indianapolis. And this year, the men's Final Four returns to TBS on April 4th and April 6th. Catch all the clutch shots, big-time plays, upsets, Cinderellas, Blue Bloods, and more that keep you on the edge of your seat. You're not going to want to miss a second of the action, so tune in to the NCAA Men's First Four tonight at 6 p.m. Eastern on True TV and in the March Madness Live app. Got some fun stuff tonight, Bryce. I'm super excited. It's going to be great. But now we get into the meat of the show. It's the biggest surprises of the 2025-26 NBA season. And I could not be more thrilled to talk through this with you, because I'll ask you this. I feel like this hasn't been an overly surprising season on some level. Like the teams that we expected to be at the top of the league are basically at the top of the league with one exception, maybe two exceptions. The teams that we expected to not be very good basically aren't very good. That's the reality of the situation. How did you feel about trying to collate 3 big surprises that you've seen in the NBA this year?
So I went with all players, and I feel like the names came to me fairly quickly. I just realized they all came out of the Eastern Conference. Part of that is you had already dropped some names in the chat. And so like that's part of the aspect there. But yeah, I mean, I still think Detroit as a team is a surprise for everybody. I think the top 2 teams in the East, and what we'll talk about Detroit and a player on them. But otherwise, San Antonio, again, I think is probably the biggest surprise in the West. And we're going to talk about them with one of your names. So I'm trying to think of like what the biggest team situation is right now that we're not going to talk about. Again, we're going to talk about the Charlotte Hornets. I'm excited to do that one because I think that player deserves his own 10 or 15 minutes. The Suns, we're going to talk about them too, though, right? So I think we're going to cover all of these that are kind of that stand out the most, to be honest. I mean, that aren't injury related, I guess.
So I thought there were 2 big ones that I really wanted to focus on for sure. And I think where I do want to start is San Antonio.
Mm-hmm.
I think the biggest surprise to me right now is not that San Antonio is good. I ended up taking their over at the end of the preseason. I was like, oh no, this is just going to be really good. They're going to win a whole lot of games this year. I am pretty surprised, to be honest with you, that the San Antonio Spurs, in Victor Wembanyama's 3rd year, are already what I would consider very real threats to win the NBA title. Part of the reason that they're a very real threat to win the NBA title is that they seem to have Oklahoma City's number on some level. I do think that there are inherent mismatch advantages that they hold over Oklahoma City, which is really, really important to consider. But beyond that, for me with the San Antonio Spurs, I am surprised that we're already here with Wemby, where I think he's a very real MVP candidate. Like if you told me Wemby finishes 3rd in MVP right now, that shouldn't surprise anybody. I think it's him or Cade right now for 3rd.
He should finish
you
3rd.
Maybe bet
that from somebody who covers the Pistons. I think Wembanyama should finish 3rd right now. I honestly think it's honestly more of, can he make a run at Jokic or not? I think is my opinion. I don't know if that's going to happen. We'll see how the rest of the year plays out. But right now, I think he's solidly 3rd, and it's more of, can he make a run at 2?
Beyond that, I was a pretty big proponent of the De'Aaron Fox deal in terms of the way that would bear itself out in conjunction with Wemby on the court. I have really enjoyed their synergy continuing to grow over the course of the year. They've really started to figure out their timing on ball screens more and more as they've played together consistently. In the 859 medium to high leverage minutes that Fox and Wemby have played together this season, they have a 122 offensive rating and a 109 defensive rating. They have just been totally dominant together in a real way this year that has made it really challenging for other teams. And then on top of it, Steph Castle continues to get better. A guy that I really liked in the 2024 draft. I ended up with him 2 or 3. I think 3, if memory serves. Would very clearly, I think, go number 1 in that class if it was redrafted right now. Looks outstanding. He is one of the better defenders in the league on the perimeter. He has continued to showcase his ability as a passer and playmaker over the course of the season, particularly moving more and more into that primary ball handler role, letting Fox focus a little bit more of his energy on just scoring and worrying about that. Well, also Fox takes on a decent amount of primary opportunities as well. Dylan Harper has been outstanding. We talked about Dylan Harper during the rookie show last Thursday. Just looks like a serious all-star long-term. I'm all in on the Dylan Harper experience. The two-way guard ability, the ability to get downhill, the transition threat that he presents, it's all just utterly elite. And then just the way that every single one of these role players is, when you slide them down a role, because now you have Steph Castle and you have De'Aaron Fox with Wemby, and you make Devin Vassell the fourth option. You make, Julian Champagnie the fifth option on the court. You sometimes have Keldon Johnson off the bench playing against worse players from time to time, being able to be that primary sixth man option. Carter Bryant being able to be let loose in the way that he has. Basically, everything has gone right for the San Antonio Spurs this year in a way that has led to them already having 51 wins. And they're just a serious threat to win the title this year. I thought they would be like a playoff team this year. I thought they might win a series. I would be surprised now if they don't win a series. And I think they have a real shot to get to the finals, even ahead of the Oklahoma City Thunder, who I think should rightfully be the favorite still. But there are going to be some real fun matchups here in the playoffs to figure out who gets there.
Yeah, I mean, I will continue to eat crow on this team. I took the under to start the year. Recently, we did our championship tiers and all of that, and I didn't have them high enough in that one. And I've been thinking recently, I mean, why it's still hard to pick against the Nuggets just because it is Jokic, and I know they've dealt with injury and all of that, but it's hard to not have the Spurs. If you still have the Thunder in a tier by themselves, which this isn't the conversation we need into, you have to have the Spurs in that very next tier. And we did. I just had them a little bit lower. They have been awesome. Wembanyama has been awesome. I think they're the second best defense in the NBA when fully healthy. And I sign me up for that, Oklahoma City, San Antonio, because they might prove to be just as good as Oklahoma City. When Wembanyama's on the court and you can throw out Steph Castle, you can throw out, you mentioned Carter Bryant getting into the lineup. I think that's important because that does increase the ceiling of their defense. That dude is a monster on the defensive end. And so if they can figure out how to survive offensively in 10 minutes, that is huge with him on the court. Dylan Harper's good defensively as a rookie. And then all of these other guys, as you mentioned, just kind of, filling their roles. It's kind of funny how successful players can be when they're in their correct roles. But it all starts with Wembanyama. And we always talk about his defense, and rightfully so. He's over 50% from the field. He's 36% from three, Sam, on only 5.5 attempts. I say only because I think that's a positive thing, that we're not talking about more three-point attempts than that. He's 81% from the free throw line. The recent Pistons game that they played, he did a great job. He just kept shot faking Pistons defenders and drawing fouls. And they, as you can imagine, Detroit tried to be very physical with him. He held up to it all game long and really put together an MVP level performance. And I think there is probably another step from Wembanyama. We'll see if it comes in the playoffs. We'll see if it comes next year. I am interested to see in a series if teams are able to figure something out, right? Like, are you able to hone in on something to slow him down offensively? Or are you able to get an off shooting series from all of or two of Fox, Castle, Harper on catch and shoot threes? Or are you able to figure out something to attack their defense? That's what makes the playoffs great, but they have been unbelievable all regular season long, and they have a real case for being the second best team in the NBA this year. I mean, right now they have a better record than the Pistons do, and they've done it in the Western Conference.
Can I just say this too? I think Wemby is going to be a monster in the playoffs. Like, every single big moment that Wemby has had at this point in his career, all-star, like in-season stuff,
Olympics.
Like all of that, Olympics, even like the under 19 like championship games that he would play against like Team USA, he would rise to the occasion and dominate in those games. Every single moment, it was the talking point afterward was, oh my God, that's the guy.
Yep.
I think that we're going to see that in the playoffs with him. I think we're going to look at this playoffs and be like, oh no, this is where the league's going now. Like, maybe Oklahoma City catches them. Oklahoma City has every ability to beat them. And I think there's a decent chance Oklahoma City does beat them still, even though they've had struggles in the regular season. I still would take Oklahoma City to win the title this year. But man, it's going to be hard to bet against Wemby because that dude rises to the occasion every single time he is asked to rise to the occasion. I think the world of him in terms of his mentality, in terms of his lack of fear. Every single time that he's asked to show up, he shows up and shows up in a big way, in a competitive way. I think that dude's awesome. I am so excited for the playoffs this year. And I'm so excited largely, honestly, because of him. Like, you even look at like who they're going to play in the playoffs, right? Like, my guess right now, I think I might say the Clippers, honestly. We're closing in on the point where the Clippers are 4.5 games back from Phoenix, and Phoenix continues to like thrive on some level. I think that as long as Kawhi is healthy by the time the playoffs roll around, I think I would take the Clippers at the end of the day in order to beat Phoenix and get that 7 seed. And then you get Phoenix, Oklahoma City, which would probably be a bloodbath in my opinion. But like, you get Kawhi against the Spurs again, this next generation of the Spurs. I think Wemby will take that on in a big way. I think Kawhi will take that on in a big way, and that will be an awesome series, even though I don't think the Clippers just have the firepower on the interior right now to be able to deal with Wemby after having moved Zubats.
Yeah. No, I've said it. I've been saying it for a while. I will also say, and we're about to talk about a bunch of Eastern Conference teams as well. I just think the playoffs are going to be awesome in general. I think the Western Conference matchups, I mean, like you said, if you look at it right now, just who you could get, Lakers, Wolves, Rockets, Nuggets, the semifinals matchups, but even in the Eastern Conference, I think the Eastern Conference play-in, like those teams outside of Philly, who's, just who knows, but those other teams, they're going to give the ones and the twos, Detroit and most likely Boston right now, maybe the Knicks, they're going to compete in a first round. Orlando's come into their own a little bit here. Just a lot of teams well over 500 in the Eastern Conference. I think both sides of this are going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, totally agree. Before we move on and talk about the next teams on Bryce's list, we got to shout out our partners over at Fanatics Sportsbook. Just the absolute best partners that we could have on the show here. We appreciate them immensely. This episode is brought to you by our partners over at Fanatics Sportsbook. First things first, let's talk about FanCash. Most sportsbooks, their rewards are just fluff, but FanCash is the ultimate sports currency. When you bet with Fanatics Sportsbook, you get up to 10% FanCash back on your wagers, win or lose. Did we mention that they are giving away millions in FanCash this year, and you can use that FanCash on anything in the Fanatics universe? Go over to Fanatics Sportsbook and find out why using FanCash is the best way to wager on hoops during this NCAA tournament that starts on Thursday. Fanatics Sportsbook, winning hits different here. We are also going to shout out our good friends over at Harry's. Look, Bryce and I obviously have facial hair. We can understand that shaving is difficult. Shaving is annoying. I really try to keep the neck like pretty clean when I can. And what I find is that there is literally nothing worse than shaving your neck with a dull razor. And sometimes razors will dull very, very quickly, and they will be very irritating, and they can be expensive, and that's frustrating. But you don't have to worry about that when you have Harry's. The Harry's Plus is absolutely the best way to shave your neck, your face, whatever you need to shave. The Harry's Plus will get you a barbershop quality shave with German engineered blades. Each blade is honed at 3 different angles to cut hair cleanly at the root without tugging. Blade spacing on those blades is optimized to glide smoothly and avoid clogging. Drugstore blades clog so fast. Harry's, you never have to worry about that. Each cartridge includes a lubricating strip with aloe and vitamin E to calm the skin while you shave. And the best part is that Harry's is very affordable. Because they own their own world-class blade factory in Germany, there's no outsourcing, no middleman, and the same facility has been perfecting blade making for over 100 years, which means that you have a long-term sustainability model here. You know that you're getting the best with Harry's. You just don't have to pay $30 for refills when Harry's gives you better blades for a fraction of the price. They have launched their most advanced razor ever, and it's still cheaper than anything you'll find in the grocery store. For a limited time, our listeners can get the Harry's Plus trial set for only $10 at harrys.com/game theory. This set includes the all-new Harry's Plus razor, one refined 5-blade cartridge, a 2-ounce foaming shave gel, and a travel cover to protect your blades on the go. Just go to harrys.com/game theory. That's harrys.com/game theory to claim this offer. And when you purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them that we sent you. Okay. Bryce, you're up with your biggest surprise of the NBA season to this point.
So I'm going to go a little more player here, but I think it'll bleed into a team as well. And it'll be kind of interesting to talk about. We talked about a couple players from this team last week also, sometime. But I'm going to go Nickeil Alexander-Walker. And I think Na has just been incredible this season for the Atlanta Hawks. And I don't know that he always gets quite enough credit because Jalen Johnson is averaging 23, 10, and 8. And, Trae Young gets traded. And I brought up on Okongwu and Dyson Daniels recently. Always the conversation about Reese Shea in terms of what he is and what he isn't. And I think Nickeil Alexander-Walker has gone to Atlanta and has shown that, he's not just a third guard. He's not a sixth man. Sam, I don't know how many people realize that Nickeil Alexander-Walker is averaging over 20 points per game this season. 65 games played. He's shooting 39% from 3 on 8 attempts. He is not a primary creator, but he is a guy that can secondary create. You can run a second side ball screen with him. He can attack a closeout. He's a really good mover. He's a really good player with his left hand in terms of finishing and passing and all of those things. And he's a quality defender. I think he has come to Atlanta and shown, hey, I can start as this combo guard in terms of, where else you need to build the roster. And then for Atlanta in general, this is a team that traded Trae Young and got what from Kristaps Porzingis? 17 games. And all of a sudden, Sam, I know this stretch has not been against quality opponents, but they've won 10 games and they're 6 games over 500 in the Eastern Conference with a chance to make a run at a top 6 seed. They are 1 game behind Orlando. They are only 1.5 games behind Toronto. We'll see what happens, but I wanted to shout out Nickeil Alexander-Walker. And again, quite frankly, just where Atlanta sits right now in the Eastern Conference.
Looking back on the offseason, that's probably the best signing of the offseason, right?
It has to be, right? In terms of what they paid him and the production they're getting, what's the better move in terms of a player actually changing teams?
This deal is essentially $60 million for 4 years. And I get it that there's a player option on the 3rd year. So even let's say $44.5 million, I think it is, for 3 years, because he'll decline that player option based on the way he's going right now. This is an unbelievable signing. And I do think the defense has been slightly worse this year as he's taken on that increased load, but that's coming from a level to where I thought Nickeil Alexander-Walker was a borderline all defense guard with the Minnesota Timberwolves. And now as he moves into more of a primary option, he's like a good defensive guard. You know what I mean? I'm not going to sit here and say he's a bad defensive guard. He's definitely not that. I wouldn't say he's quite all defense. I would say he's like a positive defensive guard to have out on the court right now. On top of averaging 20 points per game and being like a real primary scorer who can kind of handle the point a little bit. I mean, like it's complicated. Their point guard role, they play like a very modern style where Jalen Johnson brings the ball up the court to initiate sets sometimes. Sometimes it's CJ McCollum. Obviously, it was Trae Young early in the year for the 15 or so games that he played. And then Nickeil certainly does it from time to time. I think my biggest takeaway with all of this is, Bryce, they're going to end up with a top 7 or 8 pick, right? And having Nickeil there as your combo 1-2 gives them the ultimate flexibility to take the best player that they want to take. If you end up getting number 1, this is an amazing situation for Darren Peterson to get into because Nickeil and him can share the point guard, like lead guard responsibilities along with Jalen Johnson. And then maybe they go get a big and slide Onyeka off the bench, or maybe it's Onyeka as the starter still, whatever it is, right? Maybe it's Keaton Wagler. Like you combine Keaton Wagler and Nickeil Alexander-Walker and you play this like very up-tempo 5-out scheme. It's kind of a perfect fit for Wagler, right? Maybe it's Darius Acuff and you decide, hey, we're going to unleash Nickeil a little bit more of his energy on the defensive end now. And we're going to go with Acuff as our point guard. And we're just going to try and like dominate teams offensively with like a crazy 5-out structure and scheme. I would buy that entirely too. Maybe it's Mikael Brown. I don't love that one quite as much because they've done the Trae Young thing. And I think that there are a lot of similarities there, but you know, you can certainly fit that with what Nickeil Alexander-Walker brings to the table. The level to which hitting on Nickeil at this price point for the next 2 years after this one, at least, has changed their flexibility when it comes to team building, I really think can't be overstated. You know what I mean?
So I'm looking at this offseason, points per game, players that were hit free agency in some capacity. I mean, so Ty Jerome's averaging 20 a game, but I don't even know how many games he's actually played.
Like probably 11-ish.
Yeah. Nickeil, and this includes people that were signed and traded. Nickeil Alexander-Walker is the leading scorer of people that actually changed teams. Like James Harden went back to the Clippers. LeBron opted in with the Lakers. Julius Randle re-signed with Minnesota. The next player that changed teams, Sam, was Russell Westbrook. And this is just points per game, which isn't everything. And then it's Tim Hardaway Jr., John Collins, DeAnthony Melton. Like this was the actual free agency signing of the offseason whenever you eliminate like true trades. I realize this was a sign-in trade, but taking away true trades, it was a monster get for Atlanta. And you're right in terms of the future for them having this level of play and the versatility of this player. I say he's played good enough to be your starting quote-unquote 2 guard, but ultimately, if you draft a point guard and you want Dyson to be the 2 and whatever, and he needs to be your 6th man, then you probably have the 6th man of the NBA coming off the bench for you now. And that's
or Dyson's your 6th man.
Or Dyson, whatever. But the optionality, the versatility, which speaks to these players in general as well. But I just think it was such a home run signing. And I think he's been awesome. And I part of what I thought this segment or this episode is let's give some guys credit for just the level, the uptick that they've taken this year. And I felt like he deserved that because sometimes with awards, we get to most improved and we're kind of running out of time and we just throw names out and we don't really dive as deep into it as maybe what we might with the final one. And like Sam, his numbers have drastically jumped. Like he's averaging almost 11 more points per game on real volume, playing 8 more minutes a night. I just think he's awesome. So I wanted to give Na a shout here along with what this means for Atlanta.
Literally is 2x his scoring numbers from last season. Went from 9.4 to 20.3 points per game. An incredible season for Nickeil Alexander-Walker. I do think the world of what he's brought to Atlanta this year. And again, I think Atlanta is really well positioned now. Like think about this, Bryce. What if Minnesota still had him?
They would.
Like what if they decided, hey, we have the point guard that we need right here in Nickeil, and he did this for Minnesota, completely changes their season.
Yeah. Yeah. I hesitate on this because I wanted him. I thought he would have been perfect in Detroit. Like, so when you say that, my mind immediately goes to what if he was playing next to Cade Cunningham in Detroit right now? How much differently would people be talking about the Detroit Pistons if he was the starting 2 guard? So,
I mean, if the Pistons could have gotten him, it like totally changes their season. Even they are the number 1 team in the East without even a question right now to me.
Yep.
So Atlanta did an amazing job here. Again, like I'm a big believer in Ansi Salah as a GM. I think that everything that we've seen from him so far is really sharp to this point. So I think that they're going to be very, very good at this. And I think they will continue to figure this out in a real way. Okay. Before we move on to my next surprise, we got to shout out our friends over at Mizzen Main. Guys, you know what it's like as you start to get older. Working out is harder. The food that you eat doesn't keep you lean in the same way that it used to. And by the time the afternoon rolls around, the energy will crash down and you'll feel like a nap. That's not the way you're supposed to be living life in your 30s. Oftentimes, it's because many men suffer from low T levels. Doctors act like TRT is no big deal, just weekly shots for the rest of your life. Then you dig deeper and realize what you're actually signing up for, thousands of dollars to shut down your body's production forever. That's where Mizzen Main comes in. Mizzen Main gives you the same benefits of optimized testosterone, energy, strength, and focus without shutting your body down. No synthetics, no needles, no dependency. It's like hitting the reset button on your hormone factory instead of shutting it down. Just real natural ingredients that support healthy T levels, stamina, and recovery. Finally, something that gives you the benefits without the scary long-term stuff. They give you a 90-day money-back guarantee, so there's no risk. The worst case, you don't absolutely love it, and you get your money back. But over 91% of users report higher energy levels. Thousands of guys are feeling incredible results. Just check out the reviews on the website for yourself. For a limited time, our listeners get 50% off for life plus free shipping and 3 gifts at mengotomars.com. That's mengotomars.com for 50% off and 3 free gifts when you check out. After you purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. mengotomars.com. Okay, Bryce, I'm going to go next, and I think we have to talk about the Boston Celtics.
Yep.
Because the Boston Celtics have been very surprising insofar as I don't think anybody expected them to have 45 wins right now, right? I kind of expected, I think I took their over in the preseason because I was just like, yeah, I trust Joe Mazzulla and like I trust these dudes to figure it out on some level. But I also think that I did not expect them to be on pace to win like 53 or 55 games or whatever it is. And it's a huge credit to Jalen Brown. But I think what I want to talk about most here is something that we've talked about in the past. They're just organizational competency because of Mazzulla is ridiculous. It's absolutely unbelievable. The fact that these guys continue to take advantage of every single piece of low-hanging fruit to have both a top 5 offense and a top 5 defense while playing at the like lowest pace in the NBA is very fun. They do an amazing job of rebounding. They're 6th on the offensive rebounding. They're 6th in defensive rebounding. They limit turnovers in a real way. They never turn the ball over just because, frankly, like their offensive structure and scheme is built so that they play in space, giving these guys more time to make decisions so they don't feel flustered and rushed, right? Like this is something that Jalen Brown struggled with a little bit more early on in his career. And still, like, look, he's averaging 3.6 turnovers per game this year, but I don't feel like his turnovers are quite as consistent or backbreaking. You know what I mean? Is what they were previously. They max out their 3-point rate. They're third in the NBA in 3-point attempt rate right now. I love everything that the Celtics are doing. I am such a fan of what we've seen from them this season. To me, it's them and Oklahoma City are like organizationally the two classes of the league right now that I just trust everything that they put their players in position to do.
Yeah, I mean, this is not where I thought this team would be. And with Tatum back now, it's just hard to argue against them being the favorite in the East. If, he's only played 5 games so far. We said that we wanted to see a couple weeks. I'm still interested to see a little bit more, see what it looks like, see him get his legs underneath him. What's crazy too, I always like to bring this up, and it's not to take a dig at Derek White, because I think Derek White is incredible, but you have all of this while Derek White is kind of not having a great shooting season. You know what I mean? Like, he's under 40% from 3. He's 33% from the 3-point line, but he just does everything else. He's so good in every way. And the fact that he takes almost 9 threes a game, I made note of this in a recent watch. He has he has gravity. He is a guy that you still have to guard no matter what. And he can get on a hot streak and help them go on one of their big runs to put you away. And, even we talked about Nickeil on this last episode as well, what they've been able to do with him. We talk all the time about these teams winning on the margins, Sam. And so being able to get it starts with Peyton Pritchard when you look at their salary structure, right? That guy makes $7 million. That is one of the best contracts in the league. And then Nickeil's on $2.35 million. He's like on one of those contracts. And then not a team picking early in the draft, but you find guys because they're slotted into the roles they need to be in, Hugo Gonzalez and Baylor Shireman, who can come in and give you real minutes. So I just think they've done a great job constructing the roster, putting players in place, along with what, Mazzulla has done. And yeah, they're in a spot right now I did not envision for this team coming into the season.
I think the world of what they've been able to do. This is a good opportunity to kind of reflect now on, well, before I do this, I do want to talk about the Derek White experience, because the Derek White experience is hilarious to me. He is like a top 10 player in the league right now, according to the advanced metrics, despite the fact that he has a true shooting percentage that is 8% below the league average right now, which is unfathomable almost. Like, that's how impactful the rest of what Derek White is bringing to the table is. He limits turnovers at a super high level, 3-to-1 assist to turnover ratio, rebounds the basketball reasonably well from the guard position. I will say, I think that some of these impact metrics, they often have a positional adjustment for some of these numbers, right? So like they will say that a block from a guard is more impressive than a block from a big. And like matters more. I don't really agree with that, just like fundamentally in my head. Just because they're more novel, like guards are rarer or blocks are rarer from guards, doesn't necessarily mean that they're more valuable to me, in my opinion, I would say. And sometimes you can see that adjustment leading to some of these numbers being a little bit out of control on what his impact can be, particularly the block number where he's averaging 1.4 blocks per game. I think is doing a lot of heavy lifting there for Derek White, as well as like maxing out the 3-point rate. And, consistently they're just like a drastically better team when he's on the court. And that says a lot about what he brings to the table, because he's an unbelievable basketball player that, very rightfully should be, on Team USA, I think, at the next Olympics, because of the versatility that he brings as like a perfect bench guard for those guys. But at the same token, I don't know that I have Derek White as like a top 10 player in the league right now. I would say Derek White is probably one of the top 30 players in the league, something like that, in that ballpark, 30, 35, something like somewhere around there. I love Derek White. I think he's an outstanding, unbelievable player who is way underrated and undervalued for his contributions. But the fact that like he is not really shooting the ball over a 65 game sample this year is, somewhat concerning, I would say. But now the key is that they have Jason Tatum back. And let's use this opportunity now to talk about Jason Tatum. What have been your impressions of Jason Tatum since he has been back for the 5 games that he has played with the Boston Celtics?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's obviously still, it's not like he's 100%, right? I mean, we know that. I again think the biggest addition he brings them right now is his passing and his creation. Another guy to run a ball screen where Jalen Brown doesn't have to. And he's such an underrated passer. It's something he does. He's averaging 8 rebounds a game already, Sam, in his 29 minutes. He plays a few more minutes per game than Keita, but he might end up being this team's leading rebounder in the playoffs still by the time we get there. I think overall, I think it's been positive for a guy who's not even a year removed from an Achilles. My worry is, does he get the jumper all the way back? I feel like there's been some awkward lands so far where I don't think he's injured or hurt, but I can't imagine the mind and the processing whenever you feel like a defender's somewhat close to you and kind of the worry about landing on something. Or, I mentioned where he split the defender and then, got hung at the rim on the dunk attempt. I wonder if that stuff ends up getting fully back or not. And if it doesn't, then we are talking the 75, 80%, 85% of Jason Tatum, which still might be enough. Like they still may be able to figure it out and use it, and everybody else may be enough. But I think that's kind of where I'm starting to look is 2 things. Does he get the jumper back fully? And the second thing is, does he get to a point defensively where you can go small, right? Can you put a lineup out there where he or Shireman or whoever's your pseudo 5-man, but you can play this 5 position lineup where everybody's switching and all of that? Because I think that's a nice little curveball the Celtics can go to. Take Kate off the floor, take Vooch off the floor, take Garza off the court. But I think Tatum's the key to doing that. And I just wonder if he will get to a place physically where they feel comfortable doing that and asking him to do that in a playoff setting.
I'm really interested to see what happens with the Tatum jump shot. I think that that's what has stood out most to me so far, is that he just doesn't have the rhythm on the jumper right now that we've seen in the past from him, right? Like that's the next step for Tatum is, can he find the rhythm on the jumper? Can he find that ability to he has a very beautiful jumper, like the rhythm, like with the way that the weight transfer comes up through the legs, through his body, and then he shoots it like at a very high release point from the top. It just feels like that kinetic chain is slightly off right now when I watch him. I think at some point it's going to click. Like I'd imagine that Drew Hanlon is going up there regularly and they're working on just trying to get that back, trying to get that timing back on tight closeouts, on side steps, on different footworks that he has to get into that get presented to him in an NBA setting. But it feels like he doesn't quite have that right now. Totally fine. Still 15 games in the regular season or so to figure it out. I'm excited to keep watching Jason Tatum and figure out if that's going to come. I do think for them to be favorites in the East, the whole idea is that they have now this secondary creator next to Jalen Brown, frankly, because I don't think that Jason at this level is going to be quite as explosive as a creator as what Jalen is up until maybe next season. But to me, part of that creation ability is being able to shoot and being able to knock down those shots consistently. So him getting that back over the course of the next month is what I'm most watching for from what I've seen from the Celtics to this point.
Yeah, I agree. I think I think we kind of know what this team is outside of that, and that kind of determines what the ceiling is. And I will just mention again, the fact he got back with this many games is huge because it gives them a chance to play him, maybe rest him a little bit, try out some different things, working back in at the pace he needs to, but also get a substantial amount of minutes with him on the court. And ultimately, he's playing with a lot of guys that he's played with, right? Like, how many minutes have Tatum, Brown, and White already shared together in their careers? So the integration, is still somewhat easier, but there are some other different moving parts on this team.
Yeah, I agree. That's all I've got on the Celtics. Are you through with Boston?
Yep.
Okay, so we got to shout out our friends over at Mizzen Main before we move on. Mizzen Main has been a sponsor of the show for a while here now. We love Mizzen Main, but we love Mizzen Main because I was buying Mizzen Main before they were a sponsor of the show. So I love what they do. I love their products. And it's because most dress clothes are uncomfortable. They're high maintenance. They're frustrating. And they just don't feel great to wear. But that's where Mizzen Main comes in, because they make classic menswear with performance fabrics so that it's effortless to look sharp and feel great. Mizzen Main actually invented the performance fabric dress shirt over 10 years ago. And since then, they've perfected it with modern fabrics. Mizzen Main's shirts and pants look refined, but they're stretchy, lightweight, moisture wicking, and wrinkle resistant, and they're completely machine washable. You don't have to worry about ironing or dry cleaning. When you put their clothes on, you'll feel the difference instantly. It's professional style that actually feels comfortable, whether you're in the office, on the road, or even out on the golf course. It's a timeless style that you can invest in once and enjoy for years. That's why thousands of guys swear by Mizzen and Main when they want to look great without the hassle. Right now, Mizzen Main is offering our listeners 20% off your first purchase at mizzenandmain.com. Promo code GAME20. That's MIZZEN and Main, MAIN.com. Promo code GAME20 for 20% off. Mizzenandmain.com. Promo code GAME20. And if you'd rather shop in person, you can find Mizzen and Main stores in select states. Okay, Bryce, you're up with surprise number 2.
So I'm going to go homer pick here just a little bit, and I'm going to go Jalen Duren. And then we can, morph that into the Pistons, who I still think don't often get talked to, because everybody wants to talk about their flaws, and there are real flaws. I think sometimes we forget to start the conversation with, this team is better than what everybody thought they were going to be coming into the year. They're closing in on their 50th win of the season, Sam, just 2 years after the disaster that was that season in 28 straight losses. It's not like they made moves this offseason that people were raving about, that, hey, this team all of a sudden is going to catapult to number 1 in the East. And while Cade Cunningham deserves a lot of credit, I think the biggest change for this year is when I ask you who the second best player on the Pistons is, you can answer that this season. My favorite thing to do to people last year when I was making a case for Cade Cunningham was, tell me the second best player on the Pistons. And it would go radio silent because it was hard to answer. Now, I think you can pretty clearly answer Jalen Duren. And a lot of that is his offensive growth. 19 points per game. I don't know that people realize. I think people realize what Jalen Duren is averaging. I don't know that they realize how much of a jump that is from the 11.8 last year. And it's not,
or frankly, like how he's averaging it too. Correct. Is the big thing for me.
And I'll get to that in a second, but also it's not because of a bunch of more minutes, right? He's only averaging 1.7 minutes per game more. He's not averaging a whole, to your point now, it's not like he's averaging a whole bunch more offensive rebounds. He's doing it off the bounce. Like, that is what is most impressive. Yes, there is still the ball screen lob chemistry with Cade Cunningham. But I will tell you, having watched every second of this guy's career and going back to college, the growth in the footwork and in the non-dunk finishing is substantial. It is real. The amount of shots he makes right now around the rim that are not dunks is real. Then you add in his ability to catch the ball at the free throw line in whatever situation and attack that defender off the bounce, either direction, draw fouls, get to the free throw line, make free throws. He's a 73% free throw shooter on almost 6 attempts a game. This guy has, like you talk about improvement. There is real improvement when you watch him play in the way he's able to attack and go score the ball offensively.
Completely agree. It's the handle. Like, honestly, Jalen Duren's handle might be the single most improved skill in the NBA this season to me. The level to which he is now capable of taking guys off of the bounce and creating real advantages, because he's like 6'10" or whatever with a 7'5" wingspan and is 260 pounds or whatever, and is explosive and coordinated. It doesn't take a lot for him to create real downhill force and like go through guys and create those advantages. And it's not just from the mid post and the foul line. Like, he will do it above the like 3-point line as well from time to time. Like, he is really, really capable now of being a versatile pick and pop, pick and roll, pick and short roll threat who you can roll all the way to the rim for a lob. You can hit him in the short roll for a drive, basically. You can hit him at the top for a pick and pop where he'll, pump fake before driving. He's going to drive. He's ultimately not going to try and, take shots from 3. But I've loved the way that we've seen that versatility of skill set for Jalen Duren improve. And I think it's a huge reason why the Detroit Pistons have been as good as they are this season. Jalen Duren being able to take on more of an actual creation load at the end of the day. Like, he's done a really great job of creating in these circumstances. So I am very, very high on what we have seen from Jalen Duren. And I think it is very, very, very impressive to me.
So just some quick, just synergy numbers for people who like the numbers. He has, according to Synergy, 90 field goal attempts in drives, 56%. In isolation, he's very good at 1.0 points per possession. Post-ups, 1.1 points per possession. He's right under 50% in those play types. He's obviously excellent as a roll man in transition. I do think there's a little bit, like, if he had a true floater, that would be like the next thing I think would be cool to add for him. Those numbers aren't quite as good, but the layup numbers are good. And then here's where I think he could really, he's only done it a little bit. If he truly just extends the jumper to the free throw line to 15 feet, that is going to put a ton of pressure on defenses. He hasn't taken many. Yeah. It's almost not even worth saying, but total 2-point jump shots, 18 of 39, 46%. We'll see. I will say I'm interested to see what it looks like in the playoffs. Like, I think ultimately people want to talk about Jalen Duren's contract and what he ends up getting this summer. I think ultimately that number is decided by how this plays out in the playoffs. Is Jalen Duren able to expand this into the playoffs, where he averaged 11.8 points per game in the 6th game against the Knicks, and go to 20 this year? Does it stay somewhat the same, or does it decrease? This team is in a little bit of trouble if it decreases, in my opinion. They need him to at least be what he's been. But if he helps them win a first-round series, get to a second round, and he's averaging 18 to 20 points per game throughout those, doing what in the way we've seen, I think that's when he truly gets the bag that people think he might be getting. Also, real quick, he isn't an elite lob threat. I don't want that to get lost. Like, that dude, there's probably better ones. Maybe elite's a little bit strong, but there's not many guys that are as good catching the ball and finishing the way he does. He has great body control.
What I would say even beyond that is more the synergy between Cade and Duren.
Right. There you go. That's what makes it elite. Yeah.
Is what makes it elite. Yeah.
Yes.
Duren is not like 7'1" or anything, but he does have real vertical pop. He has the 7'5" wingspan, and their timing is just excellent on those plays when he decides to roll all the way to the rim.
It plays out elite because of their chemistry together and Cade's trust in him and the blind lobs he throws and all of that. Yep. That's the best way to say it.
Okay. Final team that I want to talk about here is the Phoenix Suns. The Phoenix Suns have been one of the more surprising teams in the league to me this year. I did not expect them to be as competitive as they are on a night in, night out basis, insofar as they are 39-30. They have a chance to end up winning 48 games, like not out of the question right now. And I don't think anybody saw that coming into the year. And to me, the biggest reason is the hiring of Jordan Ott. Jordan Ott has done an exceptional job with this team to this point this season, particularly on the defensive end. They have a real identity on the defensive end this season where they are capable of really getting up into you and frustrating you at the point of attack. I have loved watching them play. And on top of it, speaking of hitting the low-hanging fruit every single night, very similar to the Boston Celtics, play at a slow pace, max out three-point attempt rate. They are currently 6th in three-point attempt rate this season. What they don't do quite as good as Boston is that their turnover rate can get quite high because Devin Booker sometimes will get a little bit turnover happy. Jalen Green, these like 21 games has been quite turnover prone, if I'm being completely honest. Even like Dylan Brooks from time to time can get a little bit funky there in terms of the turnovers. Overall, they are currently middle of the pack league-wide in turnover rate, but they crash the offensive glass, and they do a really, really good job of getting into and forcing turnovers on the defensive end, which means they ultimately win the turnover battle night after night. The big thing for them that kind of hinders them pretty substantially is they end up getting hit on the defensive glass a little bit too often. And then if Devin Booker doesn't have it going on a certain night, they can struggle from time to time in terms of shot creation. But a big thing there too that we haven't talked about, at least in a month, is that Colin Gillespie has taken a huge leap and is very much a lower end starting point guard in the NBA right now. The fact that we can say Colin Gillespie is a starting NBA point guard and not like think that is a crazy statement is a huge factor here that matters. Now, Gillespie has been like a little bit off for the last like week and a half or so.
He's had like a 4-game stretch that's been weird. Yeah.
Yeah. But prior to that stretch, Gillespie had been absolutely unbelievable. If you look basically from the end of November until this like recent 4-game stretch where it wasn't very good, 15 points, 4 rebounds, 5 assists versus only 1.7 turnovers, shooting 44, 43, 87 from the line. I have really, really loved the Gillespie experience. I think I would just rather have him than Jalen Green, if I'm being honest, Bryce. I've not really enjoyed the Jalen Green experience for the Phoenix Suns. There are games where Jalen is awesome and unstoppable, much like we saw in Houston. The game against Indiana, I thought was particularly high level. He went 14 of 23, got to the line 7 times, dropped 36 points. Having said that, the game against Boston, I thought was kind of a microcosm of the frustrations that he will bring, where he went 8 for 20 from the field, took some really bad shots. And then Minnesota was like, just one of the worst games he's played this year. He goes 3 for 17 from the field and just like doesn't impact the game quite as much as what you would hope for from somebody making $30 million a year when he's not scoring the basketball. So the Jalen Green experience, like, gotten off to just about the same start as what it was in Houston. But Gillespie looks awesome. I think that Devin Booker is awesome. We haven't mentioned the way that Dylan Brooks has kind of changed the mentality of their defense. I think he's a huge reason why their defense has been so aggressive at the point of attack, bringing him in, giving them that energy and athleticism. I really have enjoyed what Phoenix has done.
Here's what I will also say. They've played 69 games at time of recording. Devin Booker has only played 53. Dylan Brooks has only played 50. Whatever you think about Jalen Green has only played 21. Grayson Allen, who is a major part of this because they do want real 3-point volume and 3-point shooting, and he's can do that. It only played 44. They've got 56 from Mark Williams, 59 from Jordan Goodwin. They just got Haywood Highsmith, but it's not my point is, Sam, it's not like there's just been perfect health, right? It's not like we've gotten 66 games of Devin Booker and Dylan Brooks and Mark Williams playing 30 minutes and, whatever. So there's some real depth on the team that I think is roster construction wise, but also just finding the right guys that fit into what you're trying to do. I will just read some of the notes from some recent games I've watched. Monsters on the offensive rebound, and it comes from multiple players. So if you just kind of look at that, all of their big guys, offensive rebound, but even a guy like Rasheer Fleming, who's gotten his chance here recently, he rebounds. Jordan Goodwin rebounds. Haywood Highsmith, offensive rebounds. Ryan Dunn, all of their wings and bigs essentially will go offensive rebound, but they just play with a certain level of attitude, swagger, and confidence that I quite frankly just can't help but appreciate. And I don't write that about every team, but this team seems to have it. And then speaking to the defense, Dylan Brooks is obviously the best, but they kind of sneaky have multiple wing defenders to throw at guys like Cade Cunningham, Luka Doncic, these bigger creators. Even most of them could at least match up with Shea. So they just have multiple of those guys. So it's not just a Dylan Brooks. They also have Royce O'Neal. They have a Ryan Dunn that you could throw in there. They've added Haywood Highsmith. So they have these names. Jordan Goodwin has a little bit of size. And having those different names, they don't necessarily have the rim protection behind it, but at least those guys to take the perimeter matchups is important. And I love how competitive they are in terms of being disruptive.
Well, can we also mention too, Oso Ighodaro has moved into the starting lineup over the last 8 games. His mobility is really valuable on the defensive end. And he's averaging 8, 6, and 3, like with a 3-to-1 assist to turnover ratio. Passes the ball incredibly well. All the things that we loved about Oso at Marquette, when he was basically my favorite player in college basketball. I wasn't quite sure how it would translate because these bigs that don't do the non-negotiables sometimes at the big position can sometimes be a little bit frustrating. But the ability to just diagnose what's happening and get things moving as quickly as humanly possible on the court has absolutely translated for Oso. That guy is a valuable NBA player. I would I kind of felt this way at the start of the year. And even at times last year, to the point where a couple people around the league would ask me hey, if you could go, who are some of the undervalued players league wide that you would try and steal off the end of a bench? Which, by the way, pretty good podcast idea that we should probably do at some point. The guys that aren't playing or are playing minimally that you would try and go steal because you think that they're really good, like the Nimi Keita, right?
Well, we will inherently probably do that whenever we do the expansion draft episode. That's, I'm sure, coming before long.
Yeah. But Oso was a guy that I would consistently bring up, and credit to the Suns for not trading him. You know what I mean? The fact that they held on to him and knew what they had says a lot about that. They did a good job with that, and they did a good job selecting him in the draft as well. Oso is a real guy to me. I've really enjoyed what he has done this season.
I want to read my notes from their game against the Celtics. He got I call it the Giannis action. It's essentially where he gets the ball in the middle of the floor, his defender's playing off, and then Devin Booker came in and kind of set a ball screen on his man. And I only bring that up because it speaks to the talent he has off the dribble. You can't do that for any big just because the defender's playing off. They have to have some off the dribble talent. But what really stood out to me in this game was his point of attack defense, Sam. Got switched on to Jalen Brown. He gave space, and then got a quality contest on the mid-range jumper. I know Jalen Brown is really good in the mid-range, but whenever you get switched on to him with a big, if you can at least get a contest and make him make that shot over it, that's a win in that situation. Had another really good one against Peyton Pritchard. I think he has legit switchability, right? We talk about matchup versatility. We talk about switchability. Oso has real switchability. I do wonder if he's ultimately a starting center because he just doesn't really have he doesn't shoot it offensively and he doesn't protect the rim defensively. But I think he's a really, really good backup big in this league. And I've really enjoyed his minutes as well. That's a great shout out.
Completely, utterly agree. Very, very excited to watch where Oso goes long term here. And I've enjoyed the Suns this year. Like, I thought they would not be particularly fun to watch with like Jalen Green and Devin Booker, kind of trading possessions and everything. And it's been a little bit of that recently. But I've enjoyed watching them. Like, I think the Jordan Knott has them playing like an attractive, fun brand of basketball by and large.
I agree.
Okay. You are up next. As soon as you get what I assume is a dog here. I was going to say coffee, but look at that. Look at Winnie. What a good dog.
Oh, Randy's mad at me. I'm not holding her the correct way. What am I supposed to do? Oh, I'm supposed to show the shirt. So Winnie says hello.
I'm glad you're keeping Winnie warm. That's always a key here.
It's like 90 degrees. It's gonna be 100 degrees this weekend in Kansas. Like, it's ridiculous. It froze 2 days ago, but
it's ridiculous. You live in a hellscape, Bryce.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
All right, you're up with your final surprise of the season.
So listen, fans of this player are going to be very mad at me, and that's okay. I'll take it. What I'm about to say is completely like from a place of I've loved everything about what this player has done this year and have been thoroughly impressed. And if they just want to say I was too low on him, so be it.
You're calling yourself out, basically.
Yeah, and I don't even think I was wrong for being surprised that he's been as good as what he's been this year and impacted winning the way he has. It's just fans of him will say he's always been this player and the team around him just hasn't been good. It's LaMelo Ball and to a greater extent, the Charlotte Hornets. I think first and foremost, LaMelo has already played the second most games of any season in his career by 8 games. He's played 59 games this year. Obviously, his all-star season, he played 75. But before this year, 51 in his rookie year was the most games he had played. Again, he's at 59 right now. We are on track to him playing 70 games. That in and of itself is something that is something that would have surprised me this season, Sam. I think that is fair to say. Here's the other thing. Here are my notes from the most recent LaMelo Ball Charlotte Hornets game. Great activity in the passing lane, gets deflection and eventually forced a turnover. Great recovery on the shot fake, one dribble three-point attempt from Champagnie where he gets a piece of it. His effort on this end is real. Has definitely been disruptive with his hand activity. Isn't going to lock guys up at the point of attack, but if you can keep him in the right situations, he's going to survive. That's not something I would have guessed. I would have wrote about LaMelo Ball in game 60 whatever of a Charlotte Hornet season where they're one game over 500 and maybe the most fun team to watch in the NBA. This is 100% a compliment to LaMelo Ball. And for me, based off what I've watched coming into this year, it is real improvement. It is real growth. It's not just, Con Knippel's good and Charles Lee runs a good system. Those things matter. I think LaMelo Ball is more bought into things as well, showing more energy. And then now we can appreciate the offensive skill and creativity and talent that he's always had. And listen, I am saying this even with him shooting 40% from the field overall, right? It's not even like he's been crazy efficient, but I think he's been impactful. And that's what that's what I've always wanted to see. And so my surprise is he has absolutely been that this year.
I think that what I would say to the defense idea is it's not even arguable that this has been his best defensive season of his career. Like, I don't know why anybody would even try to say otherwise. You know what I mean? Sure. He is genuinely bought in and engaged in a way that we haven't seen before, right? And we're going to get to the point where LaMelo is eligible for end of season awards. And like, I've actually been sort of kind of thinking about like, okay, like, are we sure he's not an all NBA guy?
Okay. So
it's not quite there, but
this is why I wanted to bring him up for this is because Khan's the only Hornets player that gets any awards conversation. And so I feel like we get to awards and we talk about these players and these teams, and then Charlotte kind of gets shortchanged. I don't know that I'm quite there, but I wanted to give him some love. And so that's why I chose him. And then ultimately the Hornets in general. Sorry, go ahead.
So look, he had like a disastrous on February 20th. So their second game back from All-Star break. He had a disastrous like 4 for 17 game against Cleveland that like he was a big reason why they ended up losing that game, just because the shots didn't fall, right? It wasn't like the effort or energy or anything. It was just the shots didn't fall, right? But since then, in his last 12 games, he's at 42, 39, 90, averaging 21, 6.5 assists per game. Biggest number for LaMelo this season, 2.3 turnovers per game in that time. LaMelo Ball right now averaging only 2.8 turnovers per game this season. That is the lowest mark since his rookie season, when he also averaged 2.8 turnovers per game. He is making better decisions. He is consistently bought in on defense. And look, like I think there are plenty of reasons why you could say LaMelo was like not engaged on defense before, right? You could say that maybe his body was not quite right in terms of the stop-start nature of the games played for him, because he was playing half the season last year and 22 games the year before and 36 games the year before that, right? Maybe you can make a legitimate physical case that LaMelo was just not quite as able to engage defensively in the way that it felt like he needed to engage. I will hear that case out 100% of the time. If you want to make that case, totally fine. I thought a lot of it was like mentality based. Maybe it wasn't though. Maybe it was mentality at the end of the day. And something has shifted now that he's in like a real winning situation where the team is going for it. All good with that too. The reality is like, it's been way better this year defensively. And I've really enjoyed it. And I'm really, really excited to watch LaMelo Ball and where he goes now moving forward and where the Charlotte team goes, because they continue to be quite dangerous in the Eastern Conference, as I think everyone recognizes. Look, they're sitting in 10th right now because Atlanta's schedule has really eased up and has allowed them to move in. But they're only 3.5 games out of 6th right now. And look, it's a big clump. It's a big cluster there where it's Charlotte, it's Philly, it's Atlanta, it's Miami, it's Orlando. Like, I think all of those teams are playing really high level basketball right now, except for Philly. Philly's been a little bit more hit or miss, but they're dealing with a bunch of injuries right now.
Yeah.
I kind of think that I feel bad saying this, and I think that my prediction is going to end up being wrong, and I'm very disappointed about it. I think two of those teams is going to catch Toronto. And I hate it, and I'm very mad about it, because I'm going to be wrong about what I said in the preseason, where I think Toronto doesn't just make the play-in, they make the playoffs. But man, all of Miami, Atlanta, and Charlotte are playing awesome basketball right now. And I don't think Charlotte can quite catch Toronto. They're 4 games back right now. But I kind of think Orlando will catch them, because Orlando looks great right now. And then Atlanta's schedule is just what it is. And Miami is playing really well. Like, it's going to be a real fun battle for that 5-6 spot in the East moving forward. I don't know what to make of it. Atlanta's obviously on this incredible run right now where they have won seemingly I think it's 10 games in a row now, 10, right?
Yep.
And I'm really interested to see what that looks like. But LaMelo, I think, is a big reason why Charlotte is a serious threat to end up in the playoffs, not just in the play-in this year. And I would take them over Philly right now in the 9-10. And I do think I would take them to win the 7-8 game too over either Atlanta or Miami, depending on who would lose that game. So,
and if Detroit is the 1 seed, that is a great matchup for the NBA, and I think would be fascinating. And the style of play and the problems and issues that Charlotte could give Detroit, I think would be really fun to watch. Con deserves so much credit. It's unreal what he's doing. And I love that Brandon Miller is having a bounce back or whatever type of season you want to say, leading them in scoring right now. That we've talked about the center rotation and, with Diabate and Kalkbrenner, Kobe White, I think, is a great addition. I think sometimes we just say like, yeah, and LaMelo Ball has been really good this year. And then we move on to somebody else. And I thought it was a great opportunity to just sit and talk about LaMelo Ball. Can I give you my one concern that I'm really fascinated to see if it happens in the playoffs?
Yeah.
I think I have a little bit of concern that he always wants to make the momentum shot, that he always wants to go for the knockout blow, and he always wants to be the guy that makes it. And I'm interested to see if he can continue to kind of grow his decision-making and trust Con and trust Brandon Miller and trust the actions that Charles Lee wants to run and just temper that just a little bit. There's been multiple games where I feel like he lets the crowd get into this. Isn't wrong. Like, I love emotional players, but you can kind of just see it coming. Like, they go on a 6-0 run and he wants to be the guy that makes it a 9-0 run. So he takes a crazy 3 in transition as opposed to giving it up and running a ghost and whatever. Does that make sense? Like, I'm a little nervous. We might see some of those tough decision-making processes in big moments in the playoffs. And I hope he proves me wrong, but that's kind of my one thing I'm a little nervous about to watch in the postseason.
Look, could happen. Absolutely. But I do think I just want to keep it where I'm like giving him an immense amount of credit. You know what I like for the decision making, because it's better than it's been. Right.
Absolutely.
Like, I feel more comfortable just giving him credit right now for his decision making than I do questioning if that could be the case. Sure. Maybe like that might happen, but he's been better about it recently. And I think he deserves credit for being better about it. I mentioned the all NBA thing for LaMelo. I think he's going to get there games played wise. Like he only has to get to 6 more games, right? I don't think he's going to end up on my all NBA team. If you made me bet, he'd have to like really close the season crazy, and they would have to end up, I think, as the 6th seed for me to get there. But it's not as crazy of a conversation as what I thought it would be at the midway point. The way that he is driving their offensive play with his ball screen ability, his passing ability, his unselfishness, obviously the scoring ability is very real. I do think there is like a, he is one of 25-ish names for me right now that I would like narrow down. And I think that I never would have expected that at midseason. And it's a credit to what he is done this season. I think ultimately like the start of the season is probably just going to be a level too far for me to where like we end up putting him on the all NBA side. But the fact that he's put himself in this position to where I can't outwardly dismiss it is a massive credit to him.
Yeah, I think what will probably happen there is enough of the, knock on wood, enough of these guys are going to stay eligible, right? I think some of these guys would have had to miss enough games to, even guys I'm talking about guys even at the top, with Jokic and Wembanyama, and some of that may still play out, but it seems like enough guys are going to stay eligible where I think it would be hard for him to truly get into that consideration. But if they go on a run here to finish off the year and they end up the 6th seed and he's still obviously the driving force of that, I think what would come into play there is then the efficiency would really start to be a conversation. Like when you're starting to talk about all NBA stuff and, being 40% from the field. But again, I don't want to turn this into a what does he not do type of conversation. I do want it to be he has been very, very good this year. And whenever you said guys or teams that have surprised you, if I'm being completely honest and transparent, what he has done and what he has been this year has surprised me. And I wanted to give him credit for that because it's been in a very positive way.
Just for reference on awards here before we get out of here. So Luka needs 9 more games. The Lakers currently have, I believe, 14 more to play. Shea needs 8 more games. Oklahoma City currently has 13 more to play. Anthony Edwards is the interesting one right now because he needs 7 more games. Minnesota currently has 13 to play, and he has this knee injury that he's dealing with that could end up causing him some issues in terms of this, right?
Not a name I realized. Okay.
Tyrese Maxey has 4 more games. I would guess that Maxey is going to get there. in terms of those 4 games. He has been out and, you know, is going to be reevaluated in a couple of weeks. But I would guess he will get the 4 more games to be able to play by the end of the year. Jalen Brown needs 4. He's going to be fine. Kawhi is currently 12 games short with 14 games left for the Clippers. We've got
what's Cade? What's Cade? Because he's
Donovan Mitchell is at 4 left. Cade needs 4, so I think Cade's probably going to be fine even okay with this little minor injury.
Yeah. Okay.
Giannis and Steph are out, obviously. Jalen Brunson's almost there. He needs 1. Kevin Durant needs 1. Devin Booker is one who needs 12 with 13 games left, so he can only miss 1 more game the rest of the way. Victor Wembanyama needs 11 games with 13 remaining. Like, I would guess that like 1 or 2 of these guys ends up ineligible. I don't know who it's going to be, but like just law of averages says that 1 or 2 of these guys is probably going to get ineligible. Denny Avdia needs to play 12 of the Blazers' 13 remaining games, by the way, in order to be eligible for awards. And, you know, he obviously is, you know, playing every night and performing admirably, but, you know, I don't know if Denny is quite an all NBA guy, but as your next tier of guys, you never know. Jalen Johnson needs 4. Sneaky one that has like snuck up into that conversation that people will yell at me about. Paolo Banchero needs 7 games to get eligible with 14 games remaining. And I totally get it that Paulo's start of the season was not great, and I would not have Paulo as all NBA right now. What I am going to say is that Paulo, over the course of his last, you know, 25-ish games, 26 games, is averaging, let's get it right, 24, 8, and 5 with 3 turnovers, shooting 48, 37, 79, and has been like all NBA efficient over the course of this last little run, which would mean he'd be like half of the season if he's able to continue to pull this together, maybe improve it a little bit, at like 25, 8, and 5 on pretty good efficiency for like half of the season at 40 games and 2/3 of his season. So I'm just saying I'm not ruling him out. I don't have Paulo as an all NBA guy right now. I'm just saying like, let's maybe slow it down on like totally ruling him out, much in the same way that we should slow down on like totally ruling out the LaMelo thing as well. Any other big names here? Julius Randle is eligible right now. Desmond Bane, like speaking of Orlando, I mean, I think Orlando fans might tell you Desmond Bane has been their best player this year. He's eligible right now. Şengün needs 7 more games in order to be eligible. Bam Adebayo needs 5 more. I would assume he'll get that. Karl Towns is already eligible.
Chet needs 6.
Chet needs 6 more. So we're in an interesting position there, and we'll continue to keep tabs on this throughout the next couple of weeks of the show. Maybe on like Thursdays, we might like do a quick little run through on these things just to kind of keep people up to date and up to speed. But I think a lot of these guys will get eligible. It's just going to be a little bit tighter than what people expect.
Yeah. I mean, it was fun doing the last one because we essentially said anybody who hadn't lost their qualification was still eligible. And so we had all the names available to us. But when you go through the list like that, all of a sudden you realize some of the names. This has popped up to me because Asar is kind of flirting with it for Defensive Player of the Year. So kind of keeping track on some of these games played it's that time of the year. He might still make it, but I think it's also the time of year to refresh what the rules are in terms of like how many games can you play under 20 minutes and you know all of that type of stuff. And a reminder that Victor Wembanyama's whatever it's called in-season tournament championship game doesn't count for the stats, but does count for games played. And so he actually gets an extra game and anybody else, you know, that played in that one. So it is that time of year now.
Yep. Okay. Bryce, that's all we got here. on the show, tell the people where they can find your work. Tell the people what's going on.
Yeah, at Motor City Hoops on Twitter, on Blue Sky, Motor City Hoops Substack. If your favorite team plays the Pistons, i.e. the Wizards, on Tuesday or on Thursday, I will have a bunch of notes on them. So if you're a Wizards fan, I have quite a few lines on Will Riley and his performance against Detroit on Tuesday night. Obviously, the Game Theory Substack, where I have the video breakdown on Jalen Swain from his game Tuesday night against NC State. Don't know that anybody plays tonight that will warrant a breakdown for tomorrow, but then obviously we'll get into all of March Madness, and I will try to get whatever I can through those games, and then keep it locked here for the Game Theory podcast.
Go to The Athletic. Keep me employed over there. We have a breakdown of the 9 guys I'm watching in the NCAA tournament from an NBA draft perspective that I'm really excited to see. That could help themselves, that, are Darius Acuff, and who has answered every question offensively that he could possibly answer. Shout out to our sponsors, Warner Brothers / Turner Media, Harry's, Mars Men, Mizzen Main, and then obviously shout out to our partners over at Fanatics Sportsbook. Just the absolute best folks in the world over there. Shout out to Andy. We love everybody over at Fanatics Sportsbook. So please, please, please go. If you are going to wager, please use Fanatics Sportsbook. It is a terrific, terrific place. Where else? What else do we need to shout out? The Substack. Shout out to the Substack. Game Theory, samv.substack.com. Bryce has already put up a Jalen Swain breakdown from last night's game. I might do a Darius Acuff one from the SEC tournament for tomorrow. We'll see if I get some time. I have to do, whatchamacallit? I have to do rookie rankings for the site for next week. So I am excited to kind of run through Dylan Harper, obviously, again. I get to watch more Dylan Harper tape, which is always very exciting, Bryce. But that's what's most going on at the Substack, at The Athletic, and obviously at the Game Theory Podcast. Go hit the subscribe button while you're here. Game Theory Podcast with Sam Vecenie. It is the best place to know when we're going live, when we're talking about basketball, anything like that. We appreciate everybody immensely for coming through. We appreciate everyone for being here. That's all we got. Until next time, we will talk soon. Bye. Must be 21 or over. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Connecticut, call 888-789-7777. Massachusetts, call 800-327-5050. New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY. Maryland, visit mdgamblinghelp.org. Not available in all states. Terms apply. See Fanatics Sportsbook app.